Hey, nobody interrupted anybody today. I'm all by myself. Joe Brady is rounding out his coaching staff. Let's call them the Brady Bunch. And one of them is a familiar face to Buffalo fans, and they're excited. But there needs to be change to go along with this excitement. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel located inside here, the beautiful Connors and Ferris podcast studio. Dan Fates alongside an empty chair, an empty seat because Mike and Jenna having some time off this weekend. Mike with the family, Jenna enjoying her birthday weekend. So I thought I'd still come on here and do a video because there has been some news on the Bill side over the last 48 hours, specifically this morning. I'm recording this at Saturday afternoon at about 2:15. Before we get into the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends and keep sharing it along the way, because one of the reasons I wanted to do this video, and I know when Mike and Jenna get back next week, Monday, we'll have some videos, obviously, and we had a ton of videos that about McDermott change, the Brady hire, the Brady press conference, all of those kind of things, and the engagement and the response was awesome. So I wanted to, if you guys keep wanting this content, we will keep putting out this content. So that's why, again, I'm here in the Connors and Ferris podcast studio. I'm all by myself. So buckle up, because I want to go through a couple of things that have happened since Joe Brady has, as I jokingly said, it's kind of getting the Brady bunch. And that was the big thing. And there is going to be massive change, I think. Because I say that is when it was Joe Brady was hired after Sean McDermott, we kind of talked about, is it the same voice? What is really going to change? I think we understand the offense, the play caller, the system, the philosophies, for the most part, will stay the same on offense. Now, there was a hiring of Pete Carmichael to be the offensive coordinator. He has 2.5 decades of experience in the NFL, was an offensive coordinator, was the right-hand man for Sean Payton for 15 years in New Orleans. That is where Joe Brady got his first NFL job. And it was funny now to think about it, that Brady was working under Carmichael in New Orleans, and now Carmichael will work under Brady with the Bills. And this was one of the hires, because I don't want to go on too far on it, because I don't think Pete Carmichael really moves the needle one way or another, especially because Joe Brady is going to continue to call plays, and we know what that looks like, right? So I do find it funny, because I had joked and I was wrong, again, shocking. But the fact that I said, I wanted somewhat of an experienced coach on Brady's staff, and I wanted that to kind of help ease along the way. Because I said when Sean McDermott came in, he hired Leslie Frazier to be the defensive coordinator. He was at one point promoted to the assistant head coach. Leslie Frazier had been through some of this stuff that Sean McDermott was going to go through as a first-time head coach. So I had joked around about it, Coach O, because he knew him at LSU, all of those kind of things. But this is kind of what I was thinking. Even Joe Brady had Aaron Kromer underneath him. And from reports, Brady had pretty much said, Aaron Kromer helped a lot with the run game. To have that veteran presence, somebody that has been around, as Mike would say, somebody that has seen some shit and gone through some of that said shit, I think is important, especially for a 36-year-old first-time head coach. So Pete Carmichael, while it may not move the needle for Bills fans, it makes sense. He's won a Super Bowl. He's coached with Sean Payton. He's coached Drew Brees. I like that. While it may not be the flashy young hire, obviously Udinski and some of these other guys, Shieldhouse, weren't going to come to Buffalo to not call plays, and we knew that Joe Brady was going to call plays. I still thought, hey, this move makes sense. To bring in a veteran. It's kind of like in baseball. Here's the baseball analogy. Not quite Bull Durham, and maybe I'm dating myself with that movie, but I love that movie so much. You have the young hotshot player coming up. Say it's a catcher, and you have the young catcher, and you want him to go through the ups and downs of being in that spot and being an everyday player. And then you also bring in the veteran. And the veteran may not be the best veteran, but he's somebody that has been in their shoes and has learned from it. So I thought that was important. So I see Joe Brady as Nuke LaLoosh, and I see Pete Carmichael as Crash Davis as to like, all right, man, this is what's going to happen. Hey, when we lose a couple games in a row in the offensive stalls, I've been through this a little bit. Now, so is Joe Brady. This isn't like it's brand new, but that was kind of what I thought about Pete Carmichael. The other one is Jeff Rodgers has been brought over as the special teams coordinator from Arizona. I had to Google what Arizona's EPA was for special teams last year. It wasn't great. The first few years before that, it was fine. That is the end of my knowledge. I also assume that he knows something about Matt Prater, but I can't even tell you that with 100% conviction that he has connections to Prater, because Prater was in Arizona in like 22 and 2021. So that is that. Now, to get into the exciting one, and kind of the whole point of this video is, according to multiple reports, as I record this, the Bills have made a couple announcements. The Carmichael and the Rodgers official. I assume that this Jim Leonhard one will be official soon. So Jim Leonhard will be back with the Bills as a defensive coordinator. Awesome. From the time that Joe Brady was hired and we had done the video and my daughters were on my lap, it was Jim Leonhard would be a really good hire. And before this news broke, because he also talked to the Chargers and he also talked to the Ravens, but Jim Leonhard is supposedly coming back. We'll say that he is. Obviously, if that news has been broken by Rappaport and Schefter, we can go with it. This is what Joe Brady said at his introductory press conference about the type of defense he wants to have.
Yeah, look, the privilege that I've had of calling plays, you understand what keeps you up at night. When you're calling plays, I feel like defensive football for so many years was just putting stress on quarterbacks. You get to the line of scrimmage and they're putting stress on quarterbacks pre-snap, post-snap, and nowadays the type of the best defenses and the best minds are continuous all the way through the play call, putting stress on coordinators. And it's not you no longer are you able to just know where guys are going to be when they're going to be there. And I think that that's a key element of what I'm looking for on a defense is making sure that we have the versatility to be able to change personnels, get a lot of different people in different spots, similar to what we do offensively. I don't believe offensive football and defensive football should have different mindsets, but we can understand as we approach a game plan that there's a way to win every game. And as long as we have versatility and different type of pieces, that we can find that way to win, to put stress on both the offense and the defense.
That was exciting. And I think everybody was on board with understanding there needs to be a change defensively. And I think Jim Leonhard will bring that change. He is familiar with Buffalo. He played for the Bills 2 different times. Really good defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, kind of dominated the Big Ten for quite some time, played at Wisconsin, all of those things. Like he has that dog, was an interim head coach at Wisconsin for a little bit. And then obviously he has been in the NFL and things like that. Well-respected, up-and-coming defensive guy. And I was reading an article about him, and it says that Leonard's been a big proponent of teaching. He believes that, quote, football is a simple game made complicated by coaches. He has clinics online, coaching clinics available online. Like, this is a guy that, here's a guy, I like this move. Now, he was the passing game defensive coordinator, passing game specialist, however you want to call it. I'll say this. So all this excitement is great. I love the fact that it's a new direction. I think this is a great hire. I love this hire. This is a big move by Brady, somebody to come over and take care of this defense, somebody that has, again, been in this spot before, has called plays defensively, all of these things. That being said, a good hire is a lot like having a good introductory press conference. Like, it ain't worth a hill of beans right now. It doesn't mean that the Bills defense is going to be great. We've already seen there's going to be a ton of changeover, and now it'll be Leonard's job to kind of round out the rest of this. The big change is, and why I really wanted to make this video, took me a little bit to get into it, but Jim Leonhard has run more of a 3-4 defense. The Bills under Sean McDermott have run a 4-3 defense, or think of it as evens and odds. Now, just got off the phone with my friend Carl Jones. He does great work on TikTok and Instagram and all of his social media stuff. And he's going to have more video breaking down more of the on the whiteboard drawing things up. So go check out Carl Jones. He works for WIVB in Buffalo. He's a friend of mine. Like, he is really good at breaking down a lot of this stuff. And I just got off the phone because with him because I wanted to be able to explain, dumb it down as best as I can, what that change means. So again, the first thing is that he runs this hybrid 3-4 defense, which is great. It's different. Why not change it? The difference is the point of attack to me will seem the most, you'll notice the most change. So think of Pittsburgh. They run a 3-4, which in theory, or in the old days, big fat dude, nose tackle in the middle, 2 ends, and then your outside linebackers are the wild cards. So you don't know if they're blitzing, you don't know if they're dropping into coverage. So because of that, to pause right there, as I'm going to try and make this as cohesive as possible, Jim Leonhard can be a great hire, and we're all excited, myself included. There still needs to be a lot of change on the roster defensively, because what Jim Leonhard was working with in Denver is a whole hell of a lot different than what is on the roster currently in Buffalo. So there needs to be massive changes, and they have to figure out who this nose tackle could be. Think Vince Wilfork for the longest time with New Orleans or with New England. Think of Cam Hayward with Pittsburgh. You know, some of these big guys. Vita Vea with Tampa Bay. They run a 3-4. That is the concept. But you need to have dogs to be your ends and your outside linebackers. Like Nick Bonito is a stud. Like those type of guys. And so when you think of what Von Miller ran in Denver, like he was an outside linebacker. He wasn't just a defensive end. And the point is that while it may look like a 3-4 front, your outside linebackers are lined up on the line quite a bit. And where you're trying to stress and put the offense in confusion and points of conflict is now going to be the confusion at the line of scrimmage. That's the biggest thing I think you'll notice. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I was talking to Carl about and all these kind of things. At the line of scrimmage, there could be 5 guys up at the line of scrimmage, and you don't know who's coming and who's not. That's the difference. So think of when Pittsburgh was Blitzburgh, and they ran a 3-4, but you didn't know if James Harrison was coming, and you didn't know if that end was coming, or if that linebacker was dropping into coverage. There's much more disguise that you will see this upcoming season under Jim Leonhard than what you saw with Sean McDermott. A 4-3 defense like Houston runs, like Philadelphia runs, they just have 4 dudes that are saying, you guys cause havoc. You 4 put your hand in the ground and go in and get them. Under a 3-4, it's going to be a lot more confusion of who's coming off the edge. Where's the blitz coming from? Sean McDermott's defenses were confusions on the back end. It was who's in coverage. When Joe Brady talked about putting stress on the quarterback and talked about being aggressive in those kind of sense, Jim Leonhard makes a ton of sense because that's what he's going to try and do. Think TJ Watt, like Max Crosby. Some of these guys, that's why you need a legit ends. So all of this idea and the philosophical changes are great. But to do that, which if you run a 3-4, you're really running it like 25% of the time. Like because you can run on it like the Bills did against Pittsburgh, like the Bills have done against Denver. Like obviously what your base may be changes throughout the game because of personnel, the offense, all of those kind of things. So I'm really excited about the Jim Leonhard thing, and I hope that made some sense. But the big thing is, for me, schematically, what Jim Leonhard will try and do and what Joe Brady's going to want defensively and obviously in his coordinator that he's hired is to create more confusion on the quarterback and the offensive line at the point of attack as compared to where Sean was much more confusing you and playing chess in the back end with safeties and coverages and who's dropping. So again, not an all 22 guy, haven't been in defensive huddles, but that's where a hybrid 3-4, which is what you'll see, will make a bigger difference this season, which is fine because the Bills 4-3 didn't get after the quarterback enough. It just didn't. So why not try something different? Like it just comes down to the fact of you need to have dogs. Like They need to have better players. Because when you think about some of these really good defenses that run this 3-4 or a 4-3, like, it doesn't matter. It ain't worth a hill of beans if you want to say we're going to run a 3-4 or a 4-3 if you don't have the dudes. Okay? Like, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, they could play in any scheme. Max Crosby has played a 3-4. He's now in a 4-3. DJ Watt is in a 3-4. They're just dogs. Like, that's what you're going to need. And in theory, it's these three guys, the three down linemen, when you're in this set, which will be, again, it's not going to be 50% of the time. It's not just like there's going to be one big nose tackle out there for half the plays. No, everything's different. It evolves. But the base of Jim Leonhard being a 3-4 will be, you also want your linebackers to be big athletic guys that can get downhill, fill gaps. So the Bills are going to need to address some linebackers. This front seven is going to have to be reworked. Whether it was a 4-3 or whether it was a 3-4, it was going to have to be reworked. So I like the fact that what Jim Leonhard will bring. That was the main point I want to talk about this video. But there will be schematically a different philosophy. But it ain't worth, it ain't worth anything if you don't improve the guys to actually run the scheme. So that's it in a nutshell. So we'll get to see, like I said, Will Anderson, here's a prime example, because obviously we'll be talking about draft coverage. We'll kick off combine, all of those kind of things. Will Anderson at Alabama was a part of a 3-4. So he was an outside linebacker. And when the Houston Texans drafted him, it was like, well, can he be an end in a 4-3? Can he put his hand on the ground? Yep. Yeah, he can. Yeah, he can be part of any system. So making this move also sends the message that Bean has to retool this defensive line. Like, I don't know what that means I think their defensive tackles will be just fine. It's having legit impact guys that you think of, the Von Millers, the TJ Watts, that can get after the quarterback and be dogs, as well as stopping the run and be penetrating factors on the outside of that 3-4. And they're going to need linebackers. They're going to need linebackers. So that's why I wanted to do this video, because I love the signing. I love the hiring. But there are going to be more signings coming in the future, and they're going to have to be deals being made. Because the way that they are now didn't work with a 4-3, and it won't work with a 3-4. So, Max Crosby. That's all I'll say. Has a very favorable contract, and a deal can be made. So, I like the Carmichael hire because I think it's just the veteran. I think he's the Crash Davis to kind of be the steadying force to a young offensive head coach. I don't know anything really about Jeff Rodgers. I'm not going to say anything one way or another. I thought Chris Traber did a really good job considering the injuries, the different punters, the different kickers, all those things. So he's got big shoes to fill. Obviously, Ray Davis helped him become an all-pro. And the Jim Leonhard thing, I think it's a awesome hire. I think that just means will be big changes, which were already needed to this roster defensively. So that is that. I hope I made some sense. Again, check out Carl Jones's TikTok, Instagram. He's got great insight on what it will mean. He played college football at Syracuse as a corner, like understanding those X's and O's. So I may come on here on Monday with Mike and Jenna. We may have I may have a completely different understanding of a 3-4 defense, but that's the nuts and bolts to explain to you the theory about it. Big fat guy in the middle. You got to have dogs on the end. You got to have dogs as linebackers. And you want to confuse the quarterback at the line of scrimmage rather than in the back half in coverage. Excited about Jim Leonhard coming back to Buffalo. Again, appreciate for watching. Hey, nobody interrupted anybody today. That's a good video. Appreciate it as always. Next week, Mike and Jenna will be back. We'll have more videos as always as we continue to see what else happens, moves being made. We'll talk a little Super Bowl, all of those kind of things as the coverage and content does not stop here at the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Appreciate it as always if you like, you comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Dan and all his friends. Appreciate it as always. Have a great weekend. We'll catch you here next time on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.